Have you ever caught yourself parenting in ways that you swore you wouldn't? Maybe even repeating the very patterns that you promised yourself you'd break? In this Testimony Thursday episode, you'll hear how parent coach Anne Alvares went from a childhood of deep pain to raising her children in love, faith, and freedom, and how God can do the same in your family. If you're ready to heal, break cycles, and parent with intention, don't miss this episode. Welcome to Testimony Thursday on Faith Over Pharma. These are real, raw stories of everyday people who said yes to natural healing and watched God move in amazing ways. Quick disclaimer, nothing you hear today is medical advice, a diagnosis, or even a miracle guarantee, but it might just stir your faith and blow your mind. So go grab your electrolytes and let's get into this week's story. I'm so honored to welcome Anne to the podcast. She's a parent coach, a school counselor, teacher, mom of two, but more than that, she's someone who deeply understands the connection between our own healing and how we show up for our kids. With over 30 years working with families and 17 years supporting teens, Anne has seen it all. And she's helped countless parents move from overwhelming guilt into confidence, connection, and peace in their homes. And today we're talking about what it looks like to truly heal from the inside out, how to live your faith in hard seasons, and how to parent with intention even when you didn't grow up with the example that you're trying to become. And Anne, I thank you for being here. And I would love to just sort of begin with your story. Like, what did your healing journey look like? How did it shape the work that you're doing today?
Yes, it was quite a journey. I came from a very dysfunctional home. Both of my parents, I would say, were unhealthy. And I suffered emotional abuse, but also sexual abuse from my own father. And it was very, very painful. Like when I look back at my childhood, I feel sad about it. And it took me a while to figure out, because when you're a kid, you think that's normal. And then when you're an adult, you understand, well, that wasn't normal, actually. That was unhealthy. And so it took me a while to figure out that the way I was brought up was actually not healthy and not good. And I realized that it was showing up in my adult life because I didn't have confidence. I second guessed myself. My parents were very controlling. And so I was always seeking the opinion of other people, and I didn't trust my own instinct. And these are all things that happen when you're carrying childhood pain, is you don't have the confidence, you don't feel you have a voice. And then you start to repeat patterns of relationships that you experienced as a child. So then I was attracting unhealthy relationships in my personal life as a young woman. And I realized that I needed to heal it. I really desperately desired to be a mother. And I heard Van Zant, I heard her on Oprah one day, and she said, if you don't heal the wounds of the past, you continue to bleed. And I knew I did not want to be a bleeding mother. I wanted to be a healthy mother. And my mom and I, we were still having, my mom was still being very toxic with me when I was a young woman, and I needed to take a break from her. So I was away from her for 2 years, 3 years actually. Um, and in that time period, it was really good because I just got clarity on what had happened. I did seek professional help. I saw a counselor before I left, and I told her my story. So I always tell parents, you got to tell your story because otherwise it lives in you if you don't unleash it. You have to unleash it with someone who feels safe and you know will hear you. And so this counselor was very, very good. And she helped me to understand that it wasn't about me. And my big question was, why didn't my parents know? Why didn't my parents know they were hurting us? And she said, be grateful that you know. Be grateful that you're aware. And so that was like a light bulb for me that we have to be aware of it. Otherwise, we repeat what we learned. So that healing journey helped me. I just want to share that God has been with me forever. And the one thing that I'm grateful for my mom is she always brought us to church. So I had a deep faith in God. And my aunt used to always send me scripture when I was a kid. She knew that my mom was difficult and I believe she was trying to help me. And so Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, she sent me his readings. I read them all the time. But what I really want to share is that God will answer prayers. God answers prayers, even of children. And I remember praying to God. This is probably like the biggest prayer I've ever prayed. I knew that the abuse that I was experiencing from my dad was not good, was not healthy. But I was 12 years old and I was becoming a woman. And I knew that if it continued as I'm approaching womanhood, that I would be damaged for like the rest of my life. So as a child, I said to God, God, if there is a way that you can remove my dad from our home and keep me safe, please do it. And oh, I get teary thinking about it right now. Um, God answered my prayer. That week, my mom said that my dad was leaving. He was going away to work, back to the Orient. Hong Kong is where he had originated from. And it was indefinite when he'd be coming home. And so he didn't come home ever again. And I believe that was God's protection. He heard my prayer and he protected me from that abuse continuing into my teenage years. So yeah, that's my journey of faith is believing that he will answer and just trusting him.
Which
Yeah.
is a really hard thing to do. I think a lot of the times and I believe that the devil likes to use those times to sort of creep in on our thoughts and bring in doubts and fear and all of those things. But even to say for your parent to like ask God to remove that situation, that's like a whole other layer. It's like you want one thing to stop, but also it's like your parent that you're supposed to love unconditionally. So I'm sure that that created a lot more wounds to sort of sort through. I have battled my own sort of abandonment issues with my dad. He was bipolar and committed suicide when I was 14. And so I didn't really process those thoughts at 14 until I was 38 in the
Yeah.
middle of the Middle East on a deployment for 6 months, and everything just sort of unraveled all at once, which I would never trade that time,
Hmm.
although really terrible and not fun to face emotions and be really brutally honest with myself. But I will say that I had not felt so close to the Lord as I did in that time of just really being healed and restored. Over your years of experience, what are some of the biggest lessons that God's shown you about parenting, healing, or even just living out your faith in difficult times?
God showed me he's always been there, even when I didn't think he was, even when I didn't feel it. He's always been there. And I have turned away from God at times for sure. Like life gets busy, God is not the priority. Um, I didn't seek his help and his advice, when I got married. And now I realize that was one of the lessons is really to always seek his counsel because he will always guide you. And you can't always just go with your feelings, how you're feeling, because you can't trust your feelings, especially if you've come from a wounded place, because all you want to do is be loved because you weren't loved by your parents, by your dad. You weren't loved by him. And so you're looking for love. And so you can't trust your feelings and your judgment. You don't know what is best for you. And God has shown me time and time again, his way is better than mine. Anytime I've tried to hold on to something, and I lost it, he gave me something better. So I know that his way is better. And I've started to release, over the last few years, release control all to him. I did not want to release control in the early years. I just wanted control because if you grow up with instability in your home, control is really important because you didn't feel in control when you were a kid. And so you seek control when you're an adult. And that was definitely me. I wanted to be in charge, in control, and planning my life. But my life didn't go as planned. And so I had to lean into God and say, okay, God, my marriage ended. Okay, God, I'm not in the job I wanted to be. Okay, God, like this isn't where I thought I was going to live. And just release it. Release that desire to control your life because everything is in his hands and he knows best.
I really love that reminder. And it's one of those things that I think is a lot easier said than done to just
For sure.
release. And I know that you've mentioned before that you had even struggled with infertility
Mm.
and how that brings up a whole lot of other, I mean, it's like you want to be a mom and you're struggling with the mom roles and all of these things. So how did you, like, tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so I got married young and I waited 7 years because my husband wasn't ready to have children. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll wait. But now he's ready. Okay, awesome. I thought it would happen just like that, but it didn't. It wasn't happening. And so I was like, that's weird. How come this isn't happening? So I went to see a fertility specialist and he said, why don't we go on Clomid, right? Which is a fertility drug to help you release your eggs. So I wanted to go home and think about it and pray on it. Um, I don't know, there was something in my gut that said, do not take the drug. I don't know why. There was just something in my gut. So when the doctor called me, he says, okay, so are we going to start the Clomid? And I said, no, I'm not going to start the Clomid. And then he said, well, are you going to rely on divine intervention? And I said, as a matter of fact, I am. And so I didn't see that fertility doctor again, but I still wasn't getting pregnant. I'm a teacher, right? I'm teaching in Calgary and I'm in a private school and I'm supervising my students on the playground. And I just had a moment with God right in the middle of the playground, right then and there, when I heard the children laughing and playing. And I was feeling like so overjoyed to be around kids because I've always loved kids. And I just said to God, God, if I am not meant to be a mother, I just want to thank you that you've given me this job. These are my children, and I get to be with them every day. And I released it. I totally released the desire to be a mom and didn't think about it again. The next time I saw the doctor, a different doctor this time, I asked if I could get my tubes flushed because someone told me, oh, maybe your tubes are blocked and that's why you can't get pregnant. So I said, can I get my tubes flushed? He said, yes, yes, but we have to wait until your next period. And I said, okay. So I waited and waited and waited, and my next period didn't come. I was pregnant. And that was my miracle. That was my miracle baby. Now I had my baby at 34, although I was married like at 26. I had my baby at 34, and I realized, I said to God, I know why you made me wait. This is the baby I'm supposed to have. This is the son I'm supposed to have. And I felt that, you know. But that was my first experience. But my second child is another miracle. So my first husband did not want any more kids. I was heartbroken. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I can be satisfied with one. But we had problems in the marriage. since the birth of our son. There was a lot of strain, and he wasn't a family man, you know? There was like a lot of holes I was feeling. And I did try, like I really tried to make the marriage work, but it just wasn't happening. It wasn't good. It wasn't a healthy marriage. So um I was like, okay, I'm okay to have just one son. But then I met my second husband, and he said, your oldest needs a sibling. And I was like, you know how old I am? It's like, you can't have any more kids. And he's like, yes, you can. Right. And so miraculously at 43, I was pregnant with my youngest. And that was the second biggest blessing of my life, and my second miracle. Even the doctor said, I can't believe you got pregnant naturally at your age. So I don't know. I think God will give you what you want once you release it all to Him. You have to release it. You can keep the desire, but you can say, but your plan is better, God. You know
Yes.
what's better. And your timing is better too.
Uh-huh. I love
Yeah.
that so much, and I resonate with that part a lot because my husband and I were married for 9 years. We had his and hers. I had two kids, he had three, and my kids were 2 and 5 when we met. And we thought, well, five is enough. We don't really need any more. So I took him to have a vasectomy. And 9 years later, I start telling him, "Ah, I don't feel like I'm done." And I was really looking into adoption. I had peeled back all of these layers of my own emotional and healed a lot of my inner child. And I decided I just want to be the kid lady. It's kind of like a cat lady, but with kids. And I just wanted to love on kids. And I was volunteering at my church and the like young children, 3 to 5, and absolutely adored it. I was had all these little pen pals and things that I had kids that I was sponsoring through Compassion International. And I just wanted more kids. And I would see all these stories of these children that were up for adoption. Maybe their original adoptive family didn't work out, and so they were up for readoption. And my heart just broke for these poor kids, and I thought, I have so much love to give them. And my husband said, wouldn't it be cheaper if we just had one of our own? And I was like, I guess. I honestly didn't know that vasectomy reversals was even a thing. And
Huh?
so we spent, well, we I went to do all the research, found this doctor. Everything about it was completely miraculous, down to the our income tax return was the exact same amount as the reversal surgery was going to cost. They had a short notice cancellation 10 days later, and everything just like worked out. And then I got notice to go to deploy for 6 months, and all I wanted was a baby. And I was angry at God for, why did you leave me on this path when all I want is this baby? And now I can't, like, I have to put it on hold. And I just cried out in anger. And the Lord said to me, I heard him in my kitchen as if he was standing right there and said, do you not trust me? Look at all I have done. And I was like, okay, I'm going to trust you. So off I go to the Middle East for 6 months. Everybody else's life is continuing on and mine is not. But I really did make an intentional effort to work on my own health, mentally, physically, spiritually, all the things. And I came back and thought it was going to happen right away. I'm approaching 40. His numbers were great. My lab said they were fine, still not happening. And we started seeing a fertility doctor. We did 2 rounds of IUI, but the meds made me so sick. And we had this just sort of like discussion of like, why are we trying to play God in this whole situation when everything about it has been incredibly miraculous and far beyond our own expectations? And so we were like, all right, we're just going to let go and let God. And like 2 weeks later, COVID shut the world down. The fertility clinic is like, well, we're not taking any clients right now. Like, we're not seeing anybody. And we're like, good, we weren't coming to see you anyway. And so then right after that, it was like a mic drop, and I had a positive pregnancy test, and it had taken us 2 years to get to that point. So I had my baby in December of
No.
2020 at 40, and
Wow.
then I just had another baby at 44. I just turned 45, but in April of this year. Totally miraculous, like very natural. And that was after a miscarriage when I didn't know that I wanted another baby. And then the opportunity presented itself and I lost that baby. I again cried out to God in anger, just like, why did you give me something and take it away? I'm so heartbroken. I didn't know I wanted this and now I don't have it. And the Lord said to me again, spoke to me in my car in a fit of rage. He said, I know, I lost my son too. And I no longer
Mhm.
felt lost or forgotten or unheard. I felt love. And then 3 months later, I was blessed with my now almost 4 month old. And
Wow.
I think that a lot of times we can have our own itinerary, our own clock, our own plans. And you mentioned this that yes, when we are allowed, allow ourselves to let go of the control, God's
Mhm.
answers are always greater than we could ever ask or imagine.
It's true. It's very true. And I think your story, my story, I'm hoping will give hope to moms. I have friends that are younger than me, and they're like, "We should I freeze my eggs? I'm not in a relationship yet." All these kind of, and I'm like, "No, don't freeze your eggs. You'll be fine." Say, if I can get pregnant at 43, you'll be fine,
Yes, I'm
right?
kind of in the same boat because, the medical mainstream medical wants to rush everybody into fertility treatments. Obviously, if you go to a fertility doctor, they're going to like quote unquote sell you on
Yeah.
what they have to offer. But that often comes without first like having good foundations, whether that's
Mhm.
physical, mental, like is your relationship in a solid place? I
Mhm.
wholeheartedly believe that all of those things, all of the work that it took me 2 years, and then, I had another baby 4.5 years later, but all of that stuff that happened in that time frame, the growth, the strengthening of my relationship with the Lord, with my husband,
Yeah.
my kids are just better off because I'm better, because I took all of that
Yes.
time. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, even though it really sucked and I wanted a baby like yesterday.
Yes. Yes. But don't you find that the waiting makes you appreciate them more?
Absolutely. And
Right? When it comes easy, sometimes you don't appreciate. But
no,
when you have to wait for it, then you're like, wow,
ex-
awesome.
exactly. Well, and I do have the blessing that I have a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old. So I more or less got a redo. And most definitely, people are
Yes.
always like, oh, I could never do that. Like, I'm so tired and I'm so exhausted. I could never, be a parent again in my 40s. My husband just turned 50. So all the guys he works with give him a really hard time.
Hard time, yeah.
And I can't think of a greater gift, role, responsibility than to be a parent. There's
Yes.
no greater job in the whole world. And so for us, for sure, we're very thankful and very appreciative that we were given the opportunity to have, a redo and to, you know, I was 22 when my son was born. And so I'm definitely not the same person I was at 22 in an
Yes.
unhealthy marriage that I now get to experience all sorts of adventures and amazing stuff.
Yes.
But the Lord really, it was kind of funny because when I started thinking about it, my husband was adamantly against it. And you talk about like the desires of your heart. And I just really prayed, like, if this is what you want for us, like, change his mind. Cause he was like, yeah, no, like, our kids are almost out of the house. Why would we start all
Yeah.
over? And the next day he called me and was like, why don't we just have some of our own? And I thought, what?
Yeah.
Like for him to change both of our hearts at the same time, like could have only been orchestrated by the Lord. And even thinking
100%.
about how you looked at those kids on the playground and just had gratitude
Hmm.
for the gifts you were given in that moment.
Hmm.
It made me tear up just thinking about like how sweet that is and but how hard that is to say, to release that and just say like, I'm
Yes,
okay if this is what your plan is for me.
yes,
So
I
hard.
agree with you. I do agree with you that parenting is the most important job you will ever do. And our kids are entrusted to us for a short time. But what we do with the time is what's going to make impact, right? So when we're in that element of parenting, understanding that we only have one crack at it, right? Because once they leave the nest, they leave the nest, right? And that you're leaving a legacy, really. You're leaving legacy of love, generational love. If you can get over the generation, if you can get over the trauma, the abuse, if you can let God heal you, then you are going to make impact in the world by loving your children.
That's so powerful. And I know that that's why you're very passionate about what you do. So if there's a parent who's listening and they're feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, or like they're failing, what would you say to encourage them?
Um, I would say that healing is possible for all, and that we are supposed to live as healed human beings. We cannot do God's work, the important work that He has for us, if we are unhealed, if we are carrying wounds. So healing is possible. You just got to take it day by day and get support and learn what is healthy, what wasn't healthy. Understand that your parents had pain. I think that's what makes me so compassionate is when I learned my parents' story. Then I understood why. Um, and I'm grateful that I was able to understand their traumas, right? Because now I don't carry hatred. I carry love for them and compassion. And that's part of the healing is forgiveness, compassion, and love. So that journey can happen for you. If it can happen for me and many other people, it can happen for you. And you owe it to yourself to heal because your life is going to be better, more fulfilled, and you will have joy again.
Yeah, and sometimes that can feel impossible when you're in the thick of it because it's such a big, daunting process to heal. But for parents who are listening today and they're actually ready to start their healing, where should they begin? Like, do you have some maybe small yet powerful steps that they can take to start their
Yeah.
journey?
Well, I have a whole program on heal your childhood. Learn how to connect because maybe your parents didn't connect with you. Learn how to communicate in a way that touches your children's hearts, right? Um, so I go through the process, but I have talked on my YouTube channel and on my own podcast about the healing journey that the first step is to tell your story. You have to unleash it. You have to tell it to someone safe, a coach, a therapist, a counselor, even a spouse, brother, sister, someone that will hear you and let you just release it, right? And then once you release it, then you can start processing it and seeing it in a different way. Remember, you are not that child anymore. You're an adult. You don't have to take on the messages that you gave yourself because oftentimes when we come from childhood pain, we personalize, we have a message about ourselves if our parents couldn't love us. We think we were not lovable. But actually that's not the truth. It's the truth is that your parents could not love you. They didn't have the capacity, but you were always worthy of love. So that is what you have to change in your mind and just start the process of loving yourself and loving God and sitting with God. God is all love. And so if you're sitting with God every day, you're going to feel love. I know in my darkest days, I said, God, I just want to sit in your love. God, I'm sad. I'm just going to sit with you and sit in your love. That's the power. And he will help to heal as well. But for sure, you'll have mentors that have been through what you're going through and can help you, and it will happen.
Yes, I know I struggled personally just because of my own traumas with my earthly father that I had a hard time building a connection to my heavenly father because I had felt so abandoned. And in your years of experience, what are some of the biggest lessons that God has shown you about parenting, healing, living out your faith?
God has shown me that to really fully develop relationship with others, you have to appreciate them, even when they are not the way you want them to be, right? Like, my mom and I, we have had a complete 360 healing journey. Like, I just love her so much. She's 86. She has dementia. I try and take care of her as best I can. I don't get triggered as much anymore by what she says. Um, Sometimes I do, I'm not gonna lie, but most of the time I can handle it and make it light. But also from there, I've been looking for what I love about her and appreciating her. And the more I love her and the more I appreciate her, um, the stronger our connection is. So the words I didn't hear as a kid, like, I love you, I'm proud of you, you're so amazing. Like, those are the words my mom uses now. Like, I would have loved to have heard them when I was a child, but I'll take them. I'll take them now, you know? But it's because I think I have just decided I'm gonna love her. Like, that's what we're called for as Christians. We're called to love, even though we've been hurt. So I just chose, God, help me to love her better. She triggers me. Can you help me? Give me patience. Give me patience for her. And he does. So for sure, the lesson is sit in love when you're in hurt. Remember to your identity comes from God, no one else. And God loves you and God has great plans for you. So if you can sit in that identity and not the one you gave yourself because you were hurt as a kid, that is what's going to fill you, right? Because you are worthy. And then just sit in love. In those times, have compassion for yourself. You're not meant to be perfect. We're all learning. None of us are perfect. So be compassionate, self-compassion and compassion for others, and sit in love every day. Do something you love every day. I say that to parents all the time. Do something you love every day. So you're sitting in love.
One of my favorite things to do is to have like kitchen dance parties with my husband and kids. So I try to do that on the daily. And there was a time in my life because of words someone told me about don't dance, you look ridiculous, or that's embarrassing, that I just stopped doing the thing that I loved because of other people's opinions. And now I just kind of step into that and really encourage even my older kids to do the things that they love, even if other people don't understand it, because it's usually about themselves and not really about you. So I appreciate all of that. And I appreciate you taking the time to share your love and wisdom with us. If somebody is wanting to connect with you, how can they do that? I'll make sure it's in the show notes, but I always like to
Yeah.
just mention, I know you have some resources available as well.
Yes, yes. So I'm all over the place. I have my website, annealvarez.com. Alvarez with an S, it's Portuguese. Uh, and I know a lot of people want to spell it with a Z. Um, and I have a YouTube channel, Masterful Parenting. at Masterful Parenting. I have a podcast, Masterful Parenting. And I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram. So you will be able to find me and you can DM me on any of those sites.
Amazing. And before we jump off real quick, if someone is just struggling, how can I trust God when it's so hard to see what He's got planned for us? What do you tell them?
It's okay to doubt. It's okay to lament. It's okay to complain. Do it. Tell God. He can handle it. He can handle God. I doubt you're here for me right now. It doesn't feel like you're here for me right now. Why did you make me go through this? I remember calling out to God once saying, why me, God? What have I done to deserve this? Right? I needed to get it out. And then he showed me. He gave me an important lesson that day that we're not on the planet to change other people. We're only on the planet to change ourselves. And from changing ourselves, we're going to attract the relationships that are worthy of us. So that is a huge lesson. That was a huge lesson for me to release trying to change other people, accept them for who they are, but work on yourself.
Yes, I've often heard that, forgiveness doesn't mean that you've forgotten, but when you're unable to forgive, the only person that you hurt is yourself.
100%.
And it's so much energy that can be utilized for far greater things than, you know, it is freeing, although difficult. So definitely reach out to Anne if this is an area that you're struggling in and need some help. I really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can do this again. It was fun.
Oh, thank you so much, Susan. It was a pleasure. Love being on your show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Testimony Thursday on Faith Over Pharma. If that story stirred something in you, share it with a friend who's ready to believe that miracles still happen. Got a story of your own? Head over to faithoverpharma.org. I'd love to hear it. And if this podcast is helping you see things differently, leaving a quick review helps us reach more people who are done with band-aids and hungry for truth. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative, protecting your peace, and walking in the truth that your body was made to heal.